Hey everybody, it's Party Elite here with some more multiplayer skirmish action from BattleTech. So let's take a look at my lance to kick things off. I've got a Locust LCT-1V, 2 MGs and an M laser, a Black Knight with a lot of lasers on it, a Vindicator with a PPC, some LRMs and more lasers, and a Panther with a PPC and some SRMs. So a bit of a mixed bag over here, a little bit of flanking opportunities using the Locust and the Panther perhaps, and then the Vindicator as well as that Black Knight can do a lot of damage from a decent range, especially with the PPCs and L lasers that we're seeing. On this Black Knight over here, you can see a bit of a beast over there. So a lot of options I've got for myself over here, and as my turn comes up, I start to contemplate exactly how I might want to use the terrain over here. There's some high ground to the right over here that I can use. There's also a little bit of a basin to the left, as you can see. So step one is actually to take my slowest mech, which is Apex in that Black Knight, and push it forward. And now we've got Wildfire over here in the Vindicator as well, moving up top on that high ground to the right, while I decide to send, well, first I decide to send Mockingbird and the Panther down to that low ground over there, alongside Showboat in the Locust. Again, sprinting forward, but not too far forward. I don't want to be caught with my pants down, as it were. So back into the forest we go, getting some cover and some damage reduction in case my opponent gets the jump on me somehow. Now, again, just considering that high ground as an opportunity to stand still, especially with a Vindicator where we've got Bulwark, and use that high ground to fire down into the basin. Ideally, that's where my opponent ends up. More or less immediately, we get some enemy contacts. You can see one straight up north and one to the northwest, kind of using cardinal directions. We don't really know what north is here, but you catch my drift. So I decide to reserve, as is the norm, and my opponent decides to reserve as well. Again, just kind of playing that game where you kind of wait for the opponent to do their first move. I pull a reserve again, and it's now my opponent's turn to make his move. And I think he's got a couple of mechs in phase 3 of the turn order. Makes me kind of wonder what kind of mechs he's bringing in. I can only see 2 of them, but we'll see, you know, exactly what happens when we get some sensor locking going, and maybe when some of these mechs move within visual range. Now, after some contemplation, my opponent decides to move this mech off, and I have a bit of an idea what mech that is, and it's actually been a minute or so of me waiting while another mech was moving, clearly. So there's another mech in that third phase of the turn order. Interesting to know, just something to keep in mind for me as I plan my maneuvers, because again, I can only see 2 mechs right now, and I'm not sure what any of them are, and I don't even know where the other 2 mechs are. But in comes this Kintaro, so I can now see we've got something with some SRMs, LRMs, and a couple of M lasers as well. A mid-tier, sort of medium mech there that I can take care of, I think, relatively easily. It opens shots off at my Locust, but thanks to the evasive pips, we don't take too much damage, at least from the lasers. Then a little bit of hurt afterwards with all of those missiles coming in. Bit of a threatening mech, but I'm not too scared just yet. I decide to use my Locust here first, because again, we've got that sensor lock, so I decide to move into the trees up front, take some cover thanks to the terrain in front of me, and I actually see the other enemy mech. It's number 1 in the turn order, as you can see, so that means it's an assault mech. It's going to be dangerous, but we get that sensor lock. I know it's a Kintaro, but I want to reduce its evasive pips, so I'm now able to fire at it and actually reduce its strength without taking any damage to my hit chances here. So we move in. I've got an LRM-5 on the Vindicator over here. It's the only thing that's going to be able to fire indirectly, so we push forward just to get within range, open shots off, and again, I want to move the Vindicator in a position where I can start using Bulwark so it can stay still and just fire away and reduce how much damage I'm taking. At the same time, the Black Knight, I'd much rather actually sprint it off to a distance, because we've got the L lasers and the PPCs on this thing, so I want to keep it at a distance away from my opponent's mechs, but still have an opportunity to fire away. Now, Apex does not have Bulwark, so that's important to keep in mind. I'm not actually going to be able to use that whole stay still and get the damage reduction, so I want to use trees and all for the Black Knight. Meanwhile, Mockingbird in the Panther is potentially able to push forward and fire away into that Kintaro. Again, we've stripped it of its evasive pips. We can get a little bit of damage in. We've got a PPC and an SRM-4, so a fair bit of hurt waiting to happen. And again, we have Bulwark on this mech as well, so I'd like to kind of get to a spot, stay steady, and be able to use that damage reduction. So we fire away, get a decent bit of hurt into that arm there on the Kintaro, as you can see, so not too bad. We can get rid of some of those LRMs potentially, and now it's time for that turn, sort of phase 1 turn mech to move, and I am very scared about what that mech is. It could be a pretty dangerous mech, it could be very heavily armed, and really worried that it's going to start firing away and take down potentially one of my mechs right now. That Black Knight will just drop out of nowhere, or it'll open fire on my Locust or my Panther. They are pretty exposed right now, but pretty fortunately, nothing like that happens. Now, as my turn kicks off, I decide that, again, because I have that opportunity with the evasive pips reduced on the enemy Kintaro, I'm going to use the Panther, use Mockingbird to fire away right now since the opportunity still exists. And again, we get a decent bit of damage, some damage to that central torso as well, but more so on that arm, and I don't quite mind that. If we can disarm the mech, we can reduce how much damage it can do, I'll be perfectly satisfied. Now it's my opponent's turn again, and again, last time around, we were playing that reserve game, but now we're a little bit past that. Again, I'm just inspecting this Kintaro, not too sure what it's planning on doing, not too sure what my opponent's doing here, but a bit of a flanking maneuver going on. Not a bad idea at all, but I have a bit of an idea, again, as to what mech that is. I think it's a Locust, and so I'm not too worried about how much damage output it actually has, and it's mainly because of the speed it's moving at, and when it decides to fire away like this, with one volley into the Panther, and then a second volley into the Panther, kind of a little bit of a pause in between them, I figured that's probably a Locust with those LRMs on it. So I'm very confident, or I'm relatively confident, that I don't have to worry about that left flank. I need to worry about this kind of turn order 1 mech right in front of me, and this Kintaro right in front of me as well. And now here we finally spot that 4th mech, and I have no idea what it is. It kind of tucks off into the distance there, so I'm a little worried it's another LRM boat, but it's a fast one. And then it gets some shots into my Panther. Again, one volley comes in, and then another volley comes in. So I'm pretty confident that that is also a Locust with that LRM variant. So feeling pretty good about what's off in the distance. Not 100% sure that I've guessed right, but still, you know, trying to get myself feeling pretty good about that so I can focus on the task at hand over here. Again, Wildfire in that Vindicator has Bulwark, so I want to move forward enough that I can open shots, but also so that I can stay still for the rest of the engagement and ideally take advantage of that Bulwark capability and reduce the damage that comes in. So you'll see I tuck forward, bit of a risky position, and I see that enemy mech, and well, it's a very scary mech. Let's inspect it real quick when we go into, multi-target over here. It's a Victor. It can do a fair bit of damage, especially with that AC-20. I decide to spread the love a little bit. We've got the LRM-5. That's the only thing that can hit the Kintaro. Might as well. And the PPC is able to hit the Victor, so I might as well. And again, I get a touch of damage in there. Feels like nothing. That armor is barely chipped over there, but we reduce some evasion. Now, that Victor is very scary. That AC-20 is extremely terrifying. So I do need to take care of that mech as quickly as possible. Now, you can see the Kintaro is tucking off to the side, using those trees to get a little bit of cover over there and reduce the amount of damage I can actually push through. Again, that's a 25% reduction. So that can be a pretty big deal here, and then it decides to fire away at my Locust. Again, I've got the damage reduction as well, thanks to cover. We've got decent evasive capabilities as well, so Showboat and the Locust is still standing. However, I don't want to keep the Locust up there. I don't want to keep Showboat up there. Pull the Locust back. Again, I'm less concerned about that flanking bot that's coming up behind me, that flanking mech rather. So I pull back into safety, and again, I still have sensor range, so I use sensor lock on that Kintaro, again, just reducing its evasive pips, making sure that my other mechs are able to fire away and cause some damage without having to worry about reduced hit chances here. So Apex, again, in that Black Knight, able to creep forward, and again, we don't have Bulwark here, remember that, so I need to be a bit more careful about positioning with this mech. I decide this is a decent spot, obstructed view for that Victor from the opponent here, move the Black Knight forward, and just focus down on that Kintaro, do a fair bit of damage. A near alpha strike, however, I don't want to take overheating damage, not this early on in the engagement. So I turn off some of these M lasers that have reduced chances of actually hitting, fire away, and we do a lot of damage. We start to really expose the structure on that arm over there. We did some damage to the leg as well. We make the mech unsteady, but now it's time for the Victor to move. And it's got Apex inside, so I know there's a breaching shot in there as well as multi-target. Very worried about that Victor, and that's why. One shot from that AC-20 has stripped so much armor from my central torso on my key mech over here. I am super concerned now about that Victor just destroying my mechs one at a time. Now it's time for Mockingbird to move forward though. I need to stay focused here. I need to focus on that Kintaro, drop that mech. We're almost there already. So again, I just focus in. It doesn't have any evasive pips. Fire away. The PPC goes in comes some of those SRMs as well. We do some damage to the leg and to the arm. Alright, not the best situation. I was hoping to blow that arm off, and now we've got this Locust moving in as well. Again, I don't know it's a Locust, but I'm pretty confident it's coming in so fast. It's firing those LRMs, and it decides actually to fire at the Black Knight, and I'm really worried about this Black Knight. Any damage to that CT, look how low it is on health. It's almost out of armor already, just 5 armor left. A terrible situation to be in. I decide to reserve Showboat back there. We'll see if we can use the evasion reduction at some point. In comes that other LRM boat firing away. A couple shots into my Vindicator over here, and then a couple shots into my Panther over here. Again, I'm fairly confident because of these pairs of LRMs that these are Locusts that we're dealing with on either flank of us. Now, My turn comes up again, and this time in the Vindicator, using Bulwark, so we want to stay still if possible, I decide to fire away at this Kintaro. Again, we've got a PPC, so some stability damage waiting to happen. We've got some LRMs as well for some stability damage, and an M-Laser as well. I kind of contemplate firing on the Victor, but it's pointless. The amount of damage output I'll do, it's not like I'm going to destroy its arm or its CT, so instead, I focus in on the Kintaro that still has all of its equipment. Down goes one of its arms, and a fair bit of damage to the legs as well. We get knockdown damage in there as well, so this thing's going to fall over. Pilot injury. I'm feeling pretty good about the Kintaro at least. And we've reduced some of its armaments as well. We've literally disarmed it partially. And I need to just stay focused on that and just eliminate that Kintaro, that threatening Kintaro. And then I can focus on the Victor. I decide once more to reserve Showboat just in case we're able to use our sensor lock in some other situation. Now it's time for this Kintaro to get up, and again, hopefully it'll move and we'll be able to sensor lock it. So up comes the Kintaro. It's not going to stay down, obviously, and decides to move into the water. And that's a very clever move here. You can see how close it is to overheating. You don't want to take that extra structural damage. You don't want to limit how many of your weapons you can use at this stage of the battle. So taking a dip in that cold, cold water and firing away at my Vindicator. A lot of those shots are actually missing. They're hitting the rock. Many of them are just completely flubbed, and what does manage to get through, reduced damage, because of course we've got Bulwark on that mech, and so it's guarded. Now it's time for my Black Knight to move, and again I have to be very careful here. That CT is almost gone. One more shot from that AC-20, maybe two more shots from that AC-20, and the Black Knight will probably be down. So I decide to move forward this direction over here, tuck away behind the rocks, and I decide to brace. Reduce the heat, guarded, entrenched, stay safe, and it's time for Showboat to do something. I decide that, maybe we can move Showboat up, maybe I can reserve, I'm not entirely sure just yet. Is it a good idea to move up against that Victor? Do we wait and see what else the enemy does? Yeah, let's go with the reserve here. Enemy turn, see what that Victor does, and it decides immediately, of course, to roll on up and again use its AC-20. Thankfully, again, because the Vindicator is guarded thanks to Bulwark, doesn't take too much damage, but again, that AC-20, even with 50% damage reduction, that is a lot of hurt coming through right on the CT as well. And now it's time for Showboat to, I think, finally move forward, and I decide to send her in the Locust up front over here. Not necessarily to get any damage in with just a measly little M-Laser, but more so to protect the mech. We've got another mech coming in from that left flanking maneuver. I'm not 100% sure what it is. I think it's a Locust, but just in case it's something deadlier, I want to make sure that Showboat pulls back into safety, and this mech to the left over here isn't able to just pick her off, at random just by stepping out and opening an alpha strike with, maybe a PPC or something. So I pull in over here, I decide to sensor lock this mech just to find out what it is, and my suspicions are confirmed. It is in fact a Locust. I can recognize that from the air. So now I'm pretty confident about that left flank. Still not sure about that right flank LRM boat, though I have a feeling it's another Locust, just to make room for Victor as far as C-bills go. But here comes this Locust, firing away into my Vindicator. Again, I don't really care that much. Damage reduction is going to help a lot. Barely any damage done. And another volley goes into the Black Knight once more, though. We are guarded thanks to me bracing in the previous turn. Very little damage being done there, reducing my evasive capabilities, but I'm not too concerned about that right now. I decide to reserve, again, Showboat and Mockingbird, waiting for maybe that Kintaro to make a move over here, maybe pop its other arm off, but in comes another set of shots from the LRM boat off to the right flank over here, managing to expose my central torso there. I am extremely concerned about that Black Knight going down without doing too much work, and the Vindicator over here relatively safe still, so I'm happy about that. Now, my turn comes up again. I'm actually able to move this Vindicator, or rather use this Vindicator, I should say, and we do have a clear shot on that Kintaro, and decide to take it again. I want to stay still if I can, pop some shots off, get some damage in there. Decent bit of hurt happening over here, unfortunately. Still not taking that Kintaro down, and the Kintaro is able to move further and actually get some damage in of its own. It turns around, focuses in on the Vindicator again, gets some shots in there, a decent bit of damage being done. That CT is pretty badly hurt, as you can see, very low on armor. Armor's almost stripped, but the Kintaro actually took some overheating damage there, so I'm happy about that. Some more structural damage happening. I decide to respond again, get the Mockingbird in there with the PPC and the SRM-4, do a little bit of damage on that right torso piece, but I need that arm to fall off that mech, or better yet, I need that mech to completely fall apart. We need to do something about it. My turn comes up again, and I'm able to move that Black Knight forward and again fire into the side of that Kintaro, maybe get it to drop. Again, my opponent here says that Kintaro will soon be history, and I'm just like, yeah, I sincerely hope so. I need that mech to drop. I need that mech to die, and you can see me saying it right there. I need it to die. So in goes my Black Knight. I decide to pull it into some safe distance so we're not able to completely get destroyed in one swoop. I hope for a hit on that CT. I turn off some of these M lasers. I don't want to overheat just yet. And there we go. Not enough. just not enough. That Kintaro is still standing, still fine, still has its other arm, and I am now a bit of a desperate lad here. I decide to move my Locust forward. Showboat has to get some work done. She needs to showboat over here. Decide to fire into this Kintaro using that M laser, and take a look at that. Down goes the arm, down goes that right torso, and the pilot obviously takes an injury as well. So now this mech has been disarmed, pun partially intended over there, but now it's my opponent's turn, and the Victor decides to move forward and get involved once more. Again, I'm still very worried about that Black Knight of mine. Apex is in a terrible situation. In comes a shot that AC-20 misses. I am so fortunate there, but in comes all of that fire from those missiles, and I get a head hit as well. So I'm not in an ideal situation, but I'm very fortunate that that AC-20 missed. Could have gone absolutely terribly for me. Now it's time for maybe Mockingbird to move forward. Alternatively, I could stay behind, or do I want to take that Kintaro down? Decide to focus in on that Kintaro rather than reserve. Open shots here, and goes the PPC, the SRMs as well. We do a fair bit of damage. It's unsteady now, the mech, and its CT is very exposed, very close to being taken care of. And now here comes that Locust LCT-1M, as I already sensor locked and knew about, but it's able to fire into the backs of some of my mechs, and it decides to fire into the Vindicator first. Bit of a bad call there. You can see that I'm guarded. You can see I'll have the damage reduction, and it's not firing into my back, and over here firing into the back of the Panther. That's a better call. Both of those volleys should have actually gone into the back of my Panther. Now, at the same time, that was a good flanking maneuver, so I do give kudos to my opponent here, and then move Showboat in for some more showboating, hoping to headbutt this damn Kintaro, maybe make it drop, and open shots off with both MGs here, maybe get a lucky headshot or something to drop this mech. Unfortunately, it's just not enough, so I'm a little worried about Showboat right now. I have left her a little exposed, and you can see the other LRM from my opponent now, firing away at the front of the Black Knight. Again, just chipping away at that central torso. It's a lot of damage being done, and the other volley coming in to the Panther. Again, just a bit of a bad call here because we are guarded. We've got that damage reduction, so not a good call there focusing in on that mech. Time for my Vindicator to get some action, though. I'm thinking, again, maybe we multi-target, or do we just focus in on that Kintaro and guarantee dropping the Kintaro? 59 health left on that central torso piece. We have more than enough damage output on this Vindicator, but I'm not really willing to take that chance right now, so I decide I'm just going to fire away the Kintaro and hope that it drops, and I'm quite glad that that's the decision I made, because it was those last couple of stray missiles that destroyed the CT and drops that mech. So things are in favor of my Lance right now, but I'm still very concerned about this Black Knight, about Apex just dying off, but I have to move forward. I need to get into that water. I need to cool this mech down, so I decide to creep forward and actually turn to expose my strong arms to that Victor over there. And I decide to brace to reduce the damage that's going to come in. So in comes the Victor, getting ready to fire into my mech, and unfortunately it actually is able to pull off a called shot. Aims for the center torso, gets some great hits in there, almost completely destroys the center torso there. Very little health left. I, in response, decide to jump my Panther forward. We get into the water, hoping to reduce the amount of heat that we've got right now. Turn off the PPC, just get those SRMs firing in to do a touch of damage, whatever I can do to start, maybe freaking my opponent out, getting him a little concerned about what's coming his way. Meanwhile, back here, we've got this LCT moving in. This Locust with his missiles are still, persistently moving in with that flanking maneuver, able to get some nice rear shots into my mechs. And again, now I've exposed my my rear of that Black Knight to the LRMs of this Locust. But my opponent decides that rather than fire into that exposed back, he's going to fire into the Vindicator. Again, not the best call. That's the side arc being fired into, and so we do have guarded coming into effect there. But instead then, focusing in on the Locust, and despite only getting a couple of those missiles to hit that Locust takes a lot of damage to its back. You can in fact hear Showboat complaining about it. It's not an ideal situation, so I decide to send Showboat forward and just fire into the back of this Victor. That's the least I can do, the most I can do perhaps. We've got two MGs. We've got the M laser as well. Maybe we can start causing some damage to its relatively weak back. We fire away, and actually it works out a fair bit. We do some damage to that sort of rear side torso. In comes the other LCT-1M as far as my suspicions go, firing away into the Black Knight. Again, we're still guarded, we're still safe. Now it's time to focus down on the Victor with my Vindicator. Again, I want to stay still, I don't want to move around, and I wonder, is this the time to start taking some overheating damage, or do I not want to risk it just yet? Ultimately, I decide not to risk it, turn off that M laser, fire away. The PPC gets a decent hit on the leg, a little bit of missile damage on the arms, it would seem like, but again, just not enough. I'm still so worried about that Victor now, slowly creeping back. It still has that AC-20 very much active, decides to fire once more, of course, onto my Black Knight, and the AC-20 misses. Extremely lucky there, only 23 hit points left on my CT right now, very close to being destroyed here. and I just decide I need to move that Black Knight forward. I need to focus on this Victor. I need to fire everything I can fire onto this mech. Alpha Strike, is it worth the overheating, or do I want to turn some of these things off? No, let's Alpha Strike. I go in with everything. Structure exposed there on the torso, or the right torso I should say. Leg is taking some damage, head hit as well, so alright, I need to turn this around right now, because otherwise that Victor is going to destroy my Black Knight. Now, the Locust in the rear over here, again, just creeping forward ever so slightly, able to fire into the backs of various mechs, but right now that minimal damage from those LRMs can absolutely destroy a mech or two, so I'm still very concerned, especially as it decides to fire into my Black Knight. You can see the rear armor is taking a fair bit of damage. I've lost my basic pips. Terrible situation for me to be in. And now it's time for this Panther to make a move here. Now I can either push in to fire into the Victor's back, and that is something I contemplate momentarily, but I take a look at how much damage I can cause. I can cause 50 from the PPC and 32 from the SRM-4, which isn't enough damage to actually punch through anything on the back there. I'm not going to destroy this Victor by doing that, so instead, I stay steady, use Bulwark, and hope for the best.
Copy that, Commander.
And I get it. Head destroyed on that Victor. Extremely fortunate there, but boom, headshot, down goes that tier 1 threat from my opponent. It's all about eliminating these small mechs now. I'm pretty confident that all my opponent has is one LCT 1M, I believe it is, up there, and another one further to my south. So I'm fairly confident about the situation. Of course, I still don't want to lose any mechs. Again, the CT on this mech barely has like 23 hit points left, so very quickly this Black Knight could be taken care of, and you can see we're unsteady now as well. And we've got Apex complaining about the current situation. Now, immediately I send Showboat up this little hill over here to try and sensor lock that mech, just so that I know exactly what I'm up against. I don't want to turn a corner and all of a sudden get hit by a PPC. So you can see I go in, sensor lock, take a look at this thing. What have we got over here? And we do, in fact, have another Locust. So I'm not concerned now. Fairly confident that I'll be able to pull this off, but you never know. You can get unlucky. Again, there is some RNGs involved, so you can get unlucky. I decide to go into melee against this Locust, ignore its evasion. As a result of that, we've got our S-Laser as well, hoping that a good punch will break something here, maybe the entire mech ideally, but it doesn't destroy the mech, though it does cause a fair bit of damage there. And you can see in comes the little laser as well, and that CT is almost taken care of as well. So we've got some good damage going down on that Locust over here, and it's time for this Black Knight again to maybe move into the water a little bit and brace. Again, I want to get that guarded damage reduction. I want to make sure that I'm facing my strong arm towards the Locust on the side. Unfortunately, this Locust is able to fire into my chest and destroy my CT on the Black Knight, but if I'm lucky, it'll miss. The damage reduction will be enough. Comes in from the side here, does a little bit of damage on the arm, not enough to actually take that mech down. Time for Mockingbird and the Panther to move forward as well. If I can hit this thing with the PPC and the SRM-4, I can maybe take down that CT. Unfortunately, we destroy the right arm and the right torso, but somehow that central torso just manages to survive, just harassing me now at this point. And this LCT, again, or this Locust, I should say, again, just able to turn around and fire away into the back of this Black Knight. I don't want to lose any mechs. Even though this isn't single player, I grow attached to my mechs. I want these guys to survive, so I don't like getting shot in the back like that. And again, now I send the Locust up front over here, hoping to get some shots into the enemy Locust. Unfortunately, I flubbed my shot, but we reduce enemy evasion nonetheless. It's, I mean, all I could do really. Now it's time for Wildfire in the Vindicator to roll up. Again, we can forgo Bulwark now as we fire into the back/side of this Locust. Again, I contemplate my options here. Let's just Alpha Strike. And I miss with a PPC, but in go the lasers. Central torso destroyed. Down goes one enemy Locust. Only one mech left on the other side of the field, and I decide to send my Black Knight in for it with an Alpha Strike. And as this is happening, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say, if you have enjoyed this skirmish playthrough, do let me know in the comments down below with a like and a comment. It helps me make decisions as to what content I should keep on the channel. So as we watch that last Locust get absolutely obliterated and we say GG to my opponent, again, let me know what I can do to make this experience better, make this a better viewing experience, make this a more fun viewing experience for you. I'd love to cover more BattleTech skirmishes, and I'd love to make sure that you guys are enjoying them as I do so, of course. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, cheers.